Okay, let's dive into Dakota Prescott, also known as Dak, also known as the Cowboys quarterback. And the whole situation of Dak has me thinking of something. You know, when you're a single guy or girl and you go on a date with someone and it goes really well, sometimes it behooves you to not blow up her phone the next day. Maybe even for a couple days. Just lay low. Anyone that's ever been into a contract negotiation, you know, in terms of business, knows that sometimes the less aggressive person has the upper hand to just lay low. If someone makes you an offer, you don't have to respond right away. Make them be desperate. But we're talking maybe a day, maybe 3 days, maybe at most a week. Now, I wouldn't recommend, if the date goes well, waiting a week, but waiting a couple days is not crazy. But if the date goes really well, or the business contract negotiations go really well, and you go, you know what? Because we've all said it. You call up your friend, call up your buddy, you call up your business partner, like, I think we got a huge deal. Or I think I met the love of my life. And then you don't hear from them for, let's say, a month. Usually that's a pretty big red flag. And I think we realize, maybe she doesn't like you. Maybe it didn't go as well as you thought on the date from her perspective. Maybe the business contract negotiations turned them off because they're nowhere to be found. And there comes to a point where patience crosses the line of no communication being a bad thing. And I'll never forget when Mike McCarthy got the job. Jane Slater was talking to Mike McCarthy on NFL Network, and she asked him, have you contacted Dak Prescott yet? And this was a couple days into, he had been officially hired. He had given his press conference. And his response, I remember, put up red flags in my world, and a lot of people, that cover the league on Twitter was like, God, that's kind of weird. And Mike McCarthy said, no, I have not called him. This is your starting quarterback. This isn't your right guard. This isn't your outside linebacker. This is your quarterback. The lifeblood of any franchise with the coach. And definitely for a new coach. I remember thinking, God, I get there's a lot going on, but McCarthy's had the year off. What has he just been hanging out with Jerry? He couldn't give the guy a call? Like, I remember thinking that was really weird. And Clarence Hill, who covers the Cowboys, reported today that the Cowboys have not had contract negotiations with Dak and his camp since March. It's pretty clear. Like, I don't even think it's arguable right now. Are the Cowboys really interested in extending him to a long-term contract? Is Mike McCarthy, the new head coach, sold on Dak Prescott being his quarterback for the next 4 or 5 years? Under a contract, whatever, $30, $35 million. Regardless of the exact number per year, one thing we know, with quarterback contracts, Mahomes is an outlier. And if I hear one more time, Mahomes' contract's really going to impact Dak. No, it won't. Mahomes and Dak have nothing in common, besides they both play quarterback. Mahomes has won an MVP, and his second year carried a team to the Super Bowl. Literally won the Super Bowl for the Chiefs. We saw that. Like, it happened. Dak Prescott couldn't beat the Eagles when they were playing with, like, Carson Wentz, me, and you. We also saw that game. I like Dak Prescott, but when I see the $35 million a year numbers, I went, if I was Jerry, if I was McCarthy, I think I'd pump the brakes. I've said a couple months ago, maybe a little less, who knows, this is in the middle of Corona, I can't even keep up with the dates, that I would date Dak Prescott, I would not marry him. I would feel very comfortable playing on the franchise tag. It's pretty clear the Cowboys are also very comfortable making Dak Prescott play on the franchise tag. I don't know this. I don't know the guy, but I think if we go back to those first couple days when he was hired and when he told Jane that, I haven't called him yet, maybe Mike McCarthy the entire time wasn't totally on board with signing him to this long-term contract. Because if I was the coach and I had a quarterback that I believed in, here's the thing. When you're a head coach in the league, and when you're anyone in the league, people always ask me this, like, do you evaluate every position? If you're a team with a quarterback, are you evaluating quarterbacks? And my response is yes. Teams always evaluate every position because you just never know. A player in a trade, if you're a coach at any moment, you get fired. Now, if you're an offensive coach, you might not be. If you're an offensive assistant coach, you're probably not breaking down secondary players in the draft. But if I'm an offensive coordinator or a head coach on the offensive side of the ball like Mike McCarthy, he studied Dak coming out. And obviously, I think he played them once he was in the league with the Packers, and he played Dak Prescott. Obviously, he played him actually in the playoffs when they beat him. I think it was Dak's rookie year, remember, when Rodgers carried that team to the NFC Championship. But if you remember, Dak actually had a really good game against the Packers. Their defense was atrocious. But he's going to have a pretty good idea. And then when he took the Cowboys job, I would imagine the first thing he did when he was evaluating different teams, where should I go, where should I not go, is watch the quarterback. Watch the offense, and specifically the quarterback. Kind of his bread and butter. Again, in theory, we can nitpick Mike McCarthy all we want. Well, they did a pretty good job with Aaron Rodgers. How much credit is that on Mike? I don't know, but he has to get some. He just does. I'm sorry. I get there were some articles that called him the village idiot. Maybe Aaron doesn't think that highly of him. For a long time, Mike McCarthy was widely regarded from basically 2010 to 2015 as a top 4 or 5 coach in the NFL. I know the coaching community thinks pretty highly of him. Ended weird in Green Bay. I think Mike McCarthy's a pretty solid head coach. But I would want my quarterback, if I really like the guy, under contract. I think there's a chance Mike McCarthy doesn't like him that much. And if you're Jerry and you just hired this guy to a 5 or 6 year contract, what's the rush in paying Dak? You have all the power because you can franchise him this year and then again next year. And if this year he goes on to have a Joe Flacco type season and you win the Super Bowl or you make a long playoff run, then you can extend him and quote-unquote overpay him. But if he doesn't, maybe you can look to move on. Who knows? Maybe Mike McCarthy, I don't think it would be impossible to like Andy Dalton better than Dak Prescott, but maybe Mike McCarthy likes the thought of a much cheaper guy with a team that has a bunch of money spent on other positions to give you a little wiggle room. I don't know. But when you have not had contract negotiations since March, if she hasn't called you in a month, she probably doesn't like you that much. When you like someone, Brett Veach talked about last week when they had their conference call with the media after they signed Mahomes. They were thinking about Mahomes' contract and building their team and thinking about extending guys on their own team a month into him starting because it was so clear. They already liked him clearly a ton coming out, given they traded for him. They had seen him all season long practicing. The moment he played that Week 17 game against Denver, the lights went off for many people in that organization. And then once he actually became the starter, it was clear the guy was a star. They started thinking about it 2 or 3 games in to his starting career. The Cowboys have had 4 years of Dak Prescott. It's not like he's been hurt a lot. He doesn't miss any games. He's durable. And they've showed you with their actions they're not that into him. Not that they're not into him, but they're not head over heels in love because it's not like they're throwing a bunch of money his way. They're not rushing to do some Kansas City Chiefs contract, and I'm not even talking about 10 years, $500 million. Where's their 5-year, $200 million contract? Again, I've said from the jump, the Jared Goffs, the Dak Prescotts, I'm just not in the business of paying them big-time money. I can't do it. Now, you could always push back and go, well, how are you going to upgrade? I think it's never been an easier time to find functional quarterbacks. And if I'm going to spend $35 to $40 million on a quarterback, he better be Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson, peak Aaron Rodgers. I know Brady always took discounts, but peak Tom Brady, Peyton Manning. I ain't doing it with a guy that is probably somewhere between the 14th and 9th best quarterback in the NFL on a given day. I can't do it. I can't pay a premium for a guy that's not a premium. It's kind of clear that the Cowboys are thinking that as well. What's up, everybody? My name is John Middlekauff, and I host a show for Colin Cowherd called 3 and Out on his podcast network. You can subscribe to wherever you listen to your podcast. I worked in the NFL as a scout for Andy Reid and Howie Roseman, and I've been talking about football for the last 7 years. If you like your football talk, raw and unfiltered, no BS, I'm your guy. Subscribe to 3 and Out right now.